Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting. I'm Councillor Milton, the Chair of the committee. Please be aware this evening's meeting is being live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel, and also that please be aware that as part of the Council's commitment to reducing the use of paper, councillors and officers may use electronic devices during the course of the meeting. So just to reassure you, we're not watching YouTube or any other channel. I'm joined this evening by Darren Knight, Deputy Chief Executive, and Lola Burrell, Committee Services Officer, and I also have portfolio holders and officers here this evening to assist our discussion. So thank you very much for giving up your evenings today. There are no planned tests of the emergency alarm, but if it does sound, everyone present must leave by the designated exit route. If the preferred route is blocked, use the nearest signed alternative route. Do not use the lift. Everyone must assemble at the designated point, which is the central reservation in Regent Grove in front of the police station. Members of the public and press should report to a member of the Town Hall staff who will be wearing yellow fluorescent jackets. Councillors and officers should report to the Committee Services Office. Please do not re-enter the building until the fire officer advises that it is safe to do so. And also just a reminder as well on the use of mics. So please don't place any equipment in front of mics because it does disrupt them. So laptops, iPads, if you can keep those away, that would be great. And also please remember as far as possible not to turn away from the mics as well when you're speaking. I think it's a bit easier this evening because of the way we're laid out. So thank you to members of the Town Hall staff for sorting that out this evening. That should make things a bit easier. Right, we're on to the agenda then. Item 1, apologies and substitutes. I have a couple of substitutes. So Councillor Gorman, substituting for Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Gorman, thank you for your attendance this evening. And I have Councillor Hales substituting for Councillor Day. Welcome, Councillor Hales. I would also like to welcome 2 new members to the committee. So Councillor Dray, I believe this is your first official meeting with us, but I know you've substituted on a number of occasions, so welcome. And also Councillor Chris Knight as well. Welcome. And I'm sure you'll pick things up as we go along. And forgive me when I get very confused about having a Councillor Knight and a Mr. Knight in the same room. It is going to get very confusing, I'm sure. So item 2 is declarations of interest. I need to ask members if they have anything to declare. Okay, we shall move on. And minutes, can I, so we have the minutes of the meetings held on the 2nd of September 2025. I will propose to accept those from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Luckhurst. Can I have all those in favour, please? Great, right. Those are passed and those are approved. Item 4 is the work programme. I am going to do that first rather than do it at the end, just so it gets a bit of attention. So, a few things to note on this, and I do need a little bit of help from members on this in terms of how they want us to tackle, particularly in the next meeting. The first thing to note is the commercial strategy scoping paper has been deferred, actually for the 4th time. I've got a concern over that, given this is actually something that ONS, and I think it came from the budget review group earlier in the year. We were very keen that this came to ONS before we started the budget review deliberations for this year. So I do have a concern about that. I have spoken to Councillor Hales separately about it because I think the 2 of us are both at budget review group tomorrow. So just to let members know, I think we are going to bring it up as a question tomorrow for discussion about what the impact of that is and how we can hopefully accelerate it coming forward. The rest of the work programme is as set out. There are a number of items that we want that we've been asked to consider adding, and I'll run through those, and if I could get, if anyone violently disagrees, or there's a couple I might want some input on. So the first one is to ask for an annual review of the Milverton homes and the joint venture. That is something we've considered quite a lot previously, and I think getting something to us in February or March next year would be an ideal time to do that. Do members have any contra views to that? No, fine, okay, so we can add that. The other area that we have looked at previously, because it came up through cabinet papers, was Sherborne Recycling and the way that that joint venture is operating. I would suggest that we add an annual review to that as well. I think we've done one review. I think it'd be right for us to follow that up as an annual review. And then there's a couple of others which I think came out of the last meeting. One was the opening of the paddling pool at Victoria Park. I know there have been concerns about I think, if I'm not speaking out of turn, the quality of the workmanship and some of the delays that have been caused there. Would members like us to add that to our work programme as something to ask for a debate on? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. If you can also extend that review to the knock-on effects of the similar refurb work at St Nick's Park Pool as well, because there was, dependencies between the two, and I know that one issues there sort of carried over, caused issues with delays at St Nicholas's Park Pool as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Harrison. I think good comments, and gave you all a chance to not be listening to me for at least 60 seconds. So we will add that. And then the last point on this came from the asset management strategy, I think, was whether we as a committee would like a review when a council asset is put up for sale. That feels sensible. I think we should probably agree a threshold and some discretion on that, because I don't necessarily want to be having everything come here that we might decide to dispose of. But that was one of the things that was in our strategy around managing our assets and making sure that we were getting the most out of them, and a view that might result in us disposing of them. Is that something members would like us to add and consider? Okay, I'm getting enough nods there. Right, the bit where I need you, yeah. Councillor Barnes.
Just something playing on my mind. Going back to Milverton Homes, how would that tie up with the Housing Committee? Because we have extensive talks with Milverton. I just wonder how.
I think that's an excellent question. So I did discuss this with the chair of Housing Scrutiny, and I think our feeling at the moment is that we should let Housing Scrutiny really focus on the regulatory part, because there's still quite a lot to do there, and actually Milverton Homes might sit better with this committee with a slightly broader view. But it's completely the right point, Councillor Barton, so thank you. The other thing that is coming to Cabinet next month, which is again relates into some of the work around fees and charges, is the new parking strategy, which includes fees and charges. Can I just encourage members to attend the member briefing, which will happen on the 28th of October at 6 p.m. It will take place on Teams. Has an invite gone out? Yeah, I thought it had. So yeah, that again, one of the reasons we've asked for a briefing there is partly on the expectation that it will come into overview and scrutiny. So it would be useful for us to have a chance to ask a few questions up front as well, and hopefully have an informed debate on that particular item. Now, the bit where I do need your help on is if you could have a look at the work programme. We have a lot in for the 11th of November, which is also the night I'm expecting us to call in local government reform, which may take quite a long time for us to be to chat through. It may not. You never. to be fair, you never actually know with these things. Sometimes the most complicated things actually we move through fairly quickly. I'm going to suggest to committee that the performance update from Heart should be moved into the new year. None of this is particularly palatable, but you know, everything on this list is there for a reason. I recognise that, but in order for us to have an effective discussion on the 11th of November, it's not going to do us any good if we're talking about these things at 10 o'clock at night. So I would suggest we move forward with that. The other items are bereavement services, which is an update on the with an update with regards to the underperformance listed in the Q3 budget report. I'm just wondering again whether we push that forward and ask and extend that to be a report on the rectification program as well, or the remediation program. So how is that getting back on track? Have I got members so far, or is anyone sitting there thinking this is a complete disaster and we must talk about these things then? Councillor Barton. Was it February last year? So maybe February is the time to...
Would they have this year's report in February next year? Or do you want to push it back another month to March? Or
I'll tell you what, I think it's great. It's a great point, Councillor Barton. If you'd be happy to give me the discretion to discuss that with officers and just agree a best time for us to calendarise it, I think that's a good call. Right, the third item we've got is the Q2 performance report. I would suggest that we keep that because it just becomes out of date. And the other item, which was added, I think, after the last meeting, is the 5-year land supply. Now, my gut feel was that it would be helpful to hear that before we get the South Warwickshire local plan, which is coming in the following cycle, I think. So if members are content, I would suggest we leave that on the agenda for now. So we do the 5-year land supply and the Q2 performance report. And I think generally having two things on our own agenda is a useful guide. Much more than that, and we won't actually do the job of scrutiny effectively. Councillor Harrison.
Thanks, thank you, Chair. I just noticed on the work programme, the South Warwickshire local plan does get a mention, but I guess it's the end of the year, but any reason why it hasn't been put in the programme, like as a bit of a bookmark for now? Because that's a significant piece of work, and I realise it's connected to the 5-year supply, land supply, but I would have thought it would be as a separate marker, if you like.
Yeah, it's a good question, Councillor Harrison. It's actually, the answer is actually one about process. So it will come as a cabinet report. So it's expected that we will call in the cabinet report. So the work programme is effectively just the things that are on our work programme within our gift, if you like. But we're being aware that there are some hefty things coming up on the cabinet agenda are helpful. So members are aware. I have reached out to the lead officer to ask just for some further clarity about when we can start to see some documents. I think in the past, local plan documents have actually been quite difficult to scrutinise because we tend to get 600 plus pages dumped on us sort of a week before scrutiny, and that's really, really difficult, again, for us to scrutinise properly. So I want to make sure that those documents are coming forward to us as soon as they can, and that we can get any appropriate briefings that we might need before then. So, but thank you. Right. Next item is to appoint the independent group member and Labour group member to the budget review group. So again, just to remind members, the budget review The Budget Review Group is a group that is made up of a councillor from each political group on the council, from each of the Audit and Standards and the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and also the chair of the Housing Scrutiny Committee. So we're getting bigger now. Do I have a nomination, I think, from the Independent Group? I think Councillor Whiteman, I think you are the nominee. I would be happy to nominate you if someone would second you. Councillor Kohler is seconding. Can I ask everyone to vote for Councillor Whiteman? Great. And then the Labour Group member, I believe Councillor Dre volunteered. Thank you, Councillor Dre. I will nominate Councillor Dre from the chair. Councillor Barton seconding. All those in favour? Right, that's carried. Thank you. Right. That's all the admin done. So thank you for bearing with me on that. Item 6 on the agenda is from the ONS agenda. It's the Change Programme Update 6 monthly. Sorry, Change Programme 6 monthly update. I'm going to go to Darren Knight, Deputy Chief Executive, on this to introduce it. I believe Councillor Davidson, is this now under your portfolio, or it's still under Councillor Melrose's portfolio? Great, okay. Are you happy for me to go to Mr. Knight? Not Councillor itself. Already done it. There you go.
Thank you. I think I just need to start with a really important point at the start of the meeting. Really, I think it's always good. I'm sure the committee agreed to have 2 Knights now present at this meeting moving forward. So welcome, Councillor Knight. So it's good to have 2 of us, 2 Knights here today. I thought I'd better get that one in at the start of the meeting. Right, change programme. So this is a follow-up report based on the one we did last year. The change programme was born out of the need to address the council's financial gap. It's not unusual for councils to have financial gaps to a lower or higher extent. Whilst Warwick is relatively well placed against many district councils, we are not immune from the financial challenges that face the sector. So the change programme is designed to put changes in place to address the financial gap to help protect frontline services. So by looking how we can do things to invest to save, that generates a return, how we can deliver services differently at a lower cost, or how we can increase income as ways of mitigating the need to reduce services overall. So that's a major component part. Linked to that, there's also the opportunity to further modernise how we deliver services. So as part of the work we're delivering is the rollout of a digital platform known as CRM, Customer Relationship Management, and you'll see within the report progress has been made against integrating new digital services as well. And the work also included, I think earlier on, I think last year, we did a lot of work with Commercial Gov, looking at fees and charges, and Commercial Gov are doing some follow-up work now with bereavement services regarding the commercial model around the crematorium. What you'll see within the report is that the first year target was exceeded and progress is being made against the target for 25-26. Progress has been made against 26-27 and a little bit of progress has been made against 27-28. I think there's quite a lot we've tried to contain within the report, but I think from where I'm probably sitting at the moment is around cautious optimism is the phrase on my new buzzword. So it was delay is not our friend, it's now moved to cautious optimism. So that means that whilst we've made progress, we obviously, some elements of the change programme are reliant on income generation, and that may exceed our target, it may hit a target, or may not hit our target. So there's still some risk within some of the figures that we've got. I did a bit of a review between April and July, actual performance versus target, to just give a bit of a sense check and assurance around that. So hence my sort of my cautious optimism regarding the things needed. The important thing also around timing is obviously we're coming into budget setting, you know, and our MTFS assumptions do base on no growth. Okay, so just want to make sure that point is covered off, and it's important that we do maintain that sort of discipline regarding sort of budget setting and what we can and can't spend moving forward. So we'll always give that rather sort of pessimistic view, especially as I turn into the Grinch before Christmas. So on that one, really. So I think there's a lot within the report, but happy to take any questions on elements of it. I may bring David Elkington in regarding elements of the CRM side of it, because he's a little bit closer to the detail than I am, depending on what the questions get asked. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Darren. Members, questions? Councillor Harrison.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the report. Just looking through it looks very good. You know, the completed, first of all, financial year 24-25, which was obviously last year, and that's now confirmed with the target being 300,000 progress, which I guess is actually completion, is 33,000 above expectation, overachievement. I was interested when I reading the section under there, it talks about an establishment review, which what that meant, and then it's defined underneath as where roles have been vacant for 9 months with no attempt to recruit, and therefore deemed no longer needed. And I was just interested in how that had been worded in the report, because it kind of reads, it could be a number of reasons why there was no attempt to recruit, and it might have just happened to be an outcome that, oh, we don't need that role. But I wasn't sure whether that was just the way the process was run, or whether you could read that, well, we recognise there were real efficiency savings there, or whether we just didn't get around to, we're just too busy, unable to recruit. So it was just an understanding of what that establishment review actually means in practice, because I think that term is going to be used going forward as well, which is quite a good saving. And I just had another couple of questions on the 25-26 about explaining, if you could explain the capitalisation of project management as well, which I wasn't sure if that was an ongoing OPEX becoming CAPEX, and if it's capitalised, and just an explanation, because they're both, really good, significant savings. Thanks.
Thank you. In terms of the what I call the establishment reviews, so when I joined, one of the things we put in place was a number of changes for the duration of the change programme. So the first change was about all recruitment decisions, either new roles or replacing existing roles, go through to myself, the Chief Executive, and the Strategic Director. So we will give final approval for any recruitment moving forward. That's been put in place until the change programme is completed. We also I undertook a review of all long-term agency use. So where were the roles long-term agency over a certain period of time, a challenge went back to the service around what are you going to do to put a sustainable solution in place, and so there were roles replaced because of that. And also then looking at the establishment, we looked at roles where there had been no recruitment activity for at least 9 months, and the conversation with the service area that there's been no attempt to recruit at all. Therefore, is this role really needed? Because you've not put any request in. And so those conversations were had with a number of the service areas, and those roles were then taken out of the establishment, because you need to manage and flex the establishment, and because there's also other pressure points as well. And so as part of the establishment review, we also talked to any service area where they had fixed term contracts in establishment about, is there going to be a plan for those roles as well to avoid that revenue pressure. So the conversations were had around it, and it's something that we keep under active review. So every quarter we get an updated position on the establishment, and then we have the conversation with the service area around it. So it's a live discussion that we have with myself, the Chief Executive, Street Director, HR, and then the relevant service area as well, as part of the active management of the establishment. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, pretty much. It was, I guess, understanding that it looked as if who was driving that, decision not to recruit, because as long as they're decisions that it's not having an impact on other teams or departments who are having to pick up the extra work, it's like, no, this is a real business efficiency saving here. That role is no longer required. In other words, that decision has been made on the basis that there's no consequential impact on other teams having to pick up. It's not reducing for the sake of reducing, if you like, numbers.
No, it wasn't designed about reducing for the sake of reducing. Where roles, for example, have had attempts to recruit but not recruit anybody, those roles aren't taking out, because there's an active need to replace those roles, but because of lack of candidates or whatever the reason is, they just can't get the right person in place. So we try and work with them and HR to find different ways of filling those roles. So if there's a need and there are people trying, so for example, if we take some of the compliance roles in housing, they've tried to fill some of the roles permanently but can't because there's just lack of people, so they've gone to agency to deal with some of those roles in the interim. So I hope that answers the question. In terms of capitalisation, so I'll just get my notes up. So I think what we recognised is that we do quite a lot of capital projects across the council. And I think for us, it was a better way of actually understanding the true cost of the project and how you attribute some funding to the actual staffing resource. So that would have a number of benefits. It would help us fully understand the cost of the project, allow us to better maximise the benefits of funding coming through to help pay for some of the projects, and at the same time take a little bit of pressure off the general fund revenue position as well. So that was the base behind it, but I'm not sure if Councillor Chivers wants to come and add anything to that as well.
No, I think that was one of the, I think for me it's about making that explicit link between like staff time needed to deliver a project and the delivery, because I think one of the things as an organisation we've struggled with a little bit over the years is that project management and being really, really clear about what staff resources we need to deliver a project. And so by capitalising costs, we are doing that explicit link. So it helps us plan better. And at the same time, it also, as I say, allows us to wrap what was a revenue cost into a capital project, which is just a much better way of thinking about it.
And in theory, it should also begin to make the business case development side of it think much more about some of the resourcing needed to deliver certain projects as well. So I think, because I think it's ensuring that we're not too thinly spread, where we have been on some projects in the past, it's ensuring there's more thought going into the skills, capability, capacity you need to deliver certain projects as well. So there was a number of benefits around it. Hopefully that answers but happy to follow more detail offline if needed. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Dray.
Yes, I was just wondering about the national parking platform, because if you joined, it would have generated efficiencies of £80,000 per annum. I was just wondering if it's definitely going to join in February then, or soon after February.
Thank you, Councillor Dray. That's a really, really important question. I think this initiative was this is around, for those members not familiar, this is where if you go to a car park, you may have to have different apps on your phone, depending on the car park you park in. And if you may always have the wrong app on my phone anyway. So the idea being you go through one app and you can then, it's regardless of the parking payment provider that you park in. But the convenience charge then obviously goes back to the customer to pay for that. So we looked to join part of the pilot, but we weren't able to line it up by that time. We had hoped to have joined April. I think there was a delay. We got, I think, green light to join on the 1st of December, and we didn't feel that was the right time to potentially join the national parking platform. The latest update I had from the team was they're looking to join around February. Now, that's the provisional date. It may get delayed a little bit more, which is why I've moved the anticipated savings into 26-27, and I've taken that of 25-26 just as a precaution. But the intention is still to join the national parking platform. There was a cabinet report on this, and this was looked at by Scrutiny last year from memory. I think it was, yeah. It was looked at the time, I think. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dray. Councillor Barton.
Yeah, it was along the same lines as Councillor Dray, actually, and going on from what Councillor Dray has asked. Where does the 80,000 savings come from? How do we, and what percentage of that is that of the turnover?
I can answer part of the question, so I might need to recirculate the cabinet report with the full business case in it. But currently we absorb the convenience charge. The convenience charge will then be passed back to the customer. So I could do like a payment transaction charge. I can recirculate the report, Councillor Barton, if that would help.
Yeah, we'll probably have a discussion on that later, because I'm sure that when I pay on Ringo, I pay a premium as well, I think.
Yeah, we'll recirculate the reports because it was quite a while ago since I looked at this, and I'd have to go back through the detail. But also, it does tie in also to the member briefing on the car parking strategy as well.
Great, thank you. Councillor Kohler.
Thank you, Chair. Couple of questions. The Chair mentioned earlier that the commercial strategy has been delayed again. Is there any crossover impact between this programme and the commercial strategy?
I would say at the moment, I think any commercial strategy would look to enhance potentially what we do. What I would say that the work with commercial gov, though, there is still commercial work going on, for example, with bereavement services. But for me, I can't see a material impact at the moment, but there could be more benefits potentially from the commercial strategy.
So what timing should we be expecting from each of those two things, both the commercial strategy and the work with, what was it, commercial gov? Or?
Yeah, so with following the feedback from the chair of the committee, we'll be following it with the relevant officer regarding the timeline and the date for delivering the commercial strategy. With the work with bereavement service, I'll need to come back to you, Councillor Kohler, because I don't know the date off the top of my head, but I can confirm that after the meeting. There is a project team working on that work at the moment.
So it sounds like that one will be in next year's financial numbers at some point, but the commercial strategy will, if we're lucky, it'll be next year, or are we saying it would more likely be the year after?
I would hope that the commercial strategy is with us after Christmas. But I need to talk to the lead officer because obviously I'm not the author of the report. But I'm mindful that the committee's feedback regarding the delays they've experienced.
Sorry, my question wasn't really about the strategy. Yes, that's good to know that we'll get it this side of Christmas, but when would we expect to see some benefits from that commercial strategy starting to feed through into the council's finances?
I wouldn't be able to comment on that at this point, Councillor Kohler. Whilst I do try and predict the future, I'm often wrong. So I think for me, it's around, we're going to try and focus on what we're doing at the moment and wait for that report to come forward. And I'm sure you will have some questions around it when it does arrive, Councillor Kohler.
Councillor Kohler, could I just hold you for one moment? I think Councillor Gilvers wants to come in as well. Then I'll come back to you.
So just a word on bereavement services, which I think is certainly like the priority area within the council where we think that benefit in terms of the work from commercial gov and approaching our services with a more commercial mindset in the context of that market environment that bereavement services faces. Some of that work is happening. We do need it to come through. And the question from a finance point of view, as opposed to Councillor Roberts from a service point of view, will be working out. I think that bereavement services needs commercial investment and change to stay where it is in terms of fees and charges income. So it's £2 million a year, bereavement services. And so it's working out sort of trying to model what benefit we do expect from it. And I think that's an important question to ask as it feeds into fees and charges and then into the budget for 26-27.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Helpful. Right. There's a table in the 26-27 section. I can't refer to a section number because the report doesn't have section numbers. I promised myself I wouldn't mention that. So anyway, in that table of initiatives, it's a very helpful table. It's great to see the breakdown of the different initiatives and the contributions we're expecting from them. It's on page 3 of the report that I'm looking at. Whether that's, yeah, that seems to be page 3. I've got a couple of questions and comments about it. First is that the status column doesn't seem to be adding an awful lot of benefit at the moment, in that one is confirmed and the rest just say in progress. And so a little bit more nuance around that might be helpful. For example, some of the forecasts, we've got definite forecasts. So that tends to indicate that they're a bit further along than the ones that say TBC. So would that be something that we could perhaps look at in the future? And there's also a couple of comments where it says invest to save. I presume the forecast is what the saving would be. I think it would be even more helpful if it had some quantification of what the level of investment was required, and then the assumption is that the saving is an annual saving. So,
Thank you, Councillor Curler. If I refer you to, sorry about the numbering, Councillor Curler. For the record, this was my fault. And I normally do my numbering, but I overlooked it on this occasion. So I will take full responsibility of that on this occasion. On page 4, there's a section called Investor Save, and that highlights 2 examples where there was a drawdown, a general fund service charge review and licence review, where there was a request of £48,000, and capital support the creation of additional car parking, where they asked for £30,000. So that's the money that was released to support those initiatives. So, for example, by releasing £48,000 for staffing, resourcing, the estimate, based on the current draft figures I've been given by the team, is they think the General Fund Service Charge Review would potentially bring in about £200,000 a year. So we'll take some of that money in order to lock in the staffing needed, and that would potentially release £150,000 a year for the general fund income. The prior road garages, by creating more car parking spaces, we estimate will bring in £30,000 a year. So that, so at the moment, so that preparation work is being done. Obviously, once we hit 26, 27, we'll begin to see the actual income versus the forecast, how well it achieves. There are some, for example, initiatives you've highlighted there where the financial benefit isn't known, but the initiative is quite either straightforward to implement, and we'll see what happens, or there's more preparation work going underway to just firm up any numbers. But for me, it's just more to demonstrate that there is a lot of organisational thinking going into bringing initiatives forward to do that. Hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Curler.
yes, thank you. With more detail than I was expecting, so thank you. And I'm sorry for not having read further down to pull some of the numbers out. I guess my general point was, if we're going to see another iteration of this report in 6 or 12 months' time, which I think would be a very good thing, it would be great to have that a couple more columns of information on that table just to bring the information together for me. Oh, and I think I've spotted at least 3 different spellings. I presume it's Priory Road garages? I've seen at least 3 different. Anyway. I've got one more question, if I may, and then that'll be that. In terms of staff costs, I know, for example, we've got an interim head of housing. So is there? I presume that has some impact from, for example, the upcoming local government reorganisation. So would I be right to infer that there are some other costs that are coming at us because of things like local government reorganisation coming up, where we're having to pay interim staff? And I was just wondering whether that was an issue that is potentially coming down here and will disrupt some of this, or counteract some of this good work.
Can I just add another angle to that as well? Because I think that's a really good question from Councillor Kohler. I guess the other angle here is the risk of additional staff costs through the disruption of LGR. So, for instance, people getting rather worried about what their roles might be and maybe going somewhere else, taking on other employment. I'm just wondering how are we managing all of that?
Just in terms of the typo you've highlighted, Councillor Kohler, as members will know, I often put a typo in these reports to check that you've read them. So I think if we can minute Lola that Councillor Kohler has thoroughly read my report, apart from the section on page 4 about the Investor Safe Fund. That one. But no, I think in terms of, we've got a full savings track as well, Councillor Kohler, so what we'll make sure is that the follow-up report will contain more information that you've asked for. So more than happy to do that. It's just trying to pitch it right in terms of level of detail members would be comfortable with. But I'm more than happy if you need a follow-up conversation at any points to this, more happy. We've got individual business cases for each proposal set out in the report as well. So any members want to see those, more than happy to share them if you're interested, if that's okay. As I have another good question regarding, I think, resourcing. So I think I attended an event at West Midlands Employers on Friday, where we had a national recruitment consultant talking about the impact of LGR. So I think there is a risk to the district, borough, city council sector regarding turnover of staff. So if you do lose key staff in certain roles, there is a high risk we're going to be reliant on interim replacements until potentially 2028. So that will create potentially financial pressures if that challenge becomes more severe. Obviously, with housing, I think it's also really important to note within housing, the other challenge around senior posts in housing is that with LGR, that is going to have an impact on attracting candidates to that particular role. Because if you're in a housing association, why would you leave a housing association to go to council that could be abolished and create that level of uncertainty? So, and we also felt what the service needed at this point in time, we needed to bring somebody in who's got the experience that we can rely on to lead the service as part of its regulatory challenge. And so for me, getting an interim in provided the service immediately with the right level of skills and experience to focus on taking that service forward. So for me, it was a risk-based decision that we took. I think one of the things we will need to ensure that as we move into as the LGR position firms up in the new year, we are going to need to really think about how do we ensure that we create, where we can, stability in the organisation, where we create the environment where people don't want to leave, but ultimately there is change and we can't avoid that, and that does create uncertainty. So there is a risk in sector around it. I don't think we can avoid it, but I think there is a chance that across district and borough councils you will see more interims coming in place, or more internal promotions as well. And we've seen that already where, for example, David's our new strategic director, who's doing a really great job, and that's a really good example where we've internally promoted somebody to actually provide that more strategic support. So I think it'd be a combination of interim measures and potential internal promotions, but there'll be a cost pressure potential.
Right, thank you. Councillor Melrose.
Thank you, Chair. And just to add on to Darren Knight's point around, I think, yes, staff are going to be worried, and I think once we know the decisions that are going to be made, it will become more real. I think we are not unique. Warwick is not the only place going through local government reorganisation. 21 other places are, and I know places that are even not involved are putting bids in. So if you're wanting to stay in local government, you could move over and you're still going to be in the same boat. But I think as well as it's showing people what potentially could happen with the new authorities and what actually the positive changes that could come, you know, let's say 1 or 2, there might be opportunities to go and do a different part of the council, there might be opportunities to work in different departments. So I think it's that upskilling and showing the positive sides of this change. But I appreciate no one likes change, and this is a big change shaking up the whole sector of local government, you know, in 50 years. And if they do this again in 50 years, I don't know how many of us will be here. So.
Thank you, Councillor Melrose. Right, I'm going to take a question from Councillor Hales and then we'll wrap this up. Councillor Hales.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose the question I had, and one's been answered by Councillor Milton regarding staffing. I suppose my other one was in terms of if I look at the waste service and in terms of the level of savings there, which is excellent in terms of what's coming forward, are all the costs there attributed to that, I suppose, the area though? So have there been any costs in terms of from a digital point of view, or any work with BIFRA in terms of any additional charges in there? Or is that a bottom line figure? I suppose what I'm wary of is if there's been additional costs there, whether it be consultants' costs or reviews, are they actually attributed against the savings, or are they put in a different pot and not put against what that level of saving would be, if that makes sense, Mr. Knight?
In relation to waste?
So I suppose on waste was obviously one specific in terms of, you know, in terms of what we've done there, in terms of with the different CRM changes. Have there been any external costs that have been attributed there in terms of changing the system, or has it all been dealt with in-house?
Yes, so from memory, I think the integration work between, and David may want to come in here if I say anything incorrect here, but I think the integration work between the council and BIFRA, I think that was done in-house. I think it was the most complicated integrations we've done, but was done within our existing staffing resourcing.
we did have most of the work, well, Darren's right, most of the work for the integration on the CRM was done in-house. We did have to pay Biffa a small amount to do some work on their end. That was attributed to the CRM project costs. And we did have to, we paid a small amount as well, I think it was 1 day's consultancy to the company that provide our e-payment solution, again, because they needed to do some work on their end that was outside of our contract. But those, all of those costs, they were fully attributed to the actual project as it went through. They were costed out, we estimated them at the beginning of the CRM project and followed them through on that project.
Councillor Chilvers, do you want to come in?
Yeah, and I think the general principle there is that projects come through to the change programme board. We had one, was it this week or last week? This week. And it's the project change board that holds the investor save fund. So if if there's a service coming forward saying to deliver this annual return, we need to put in 25 grand, here's our business case. And then it's up to the change programme board to say, yeah, we're giving you the 25 grand from the investor save. And I would expect, I would want us to cost out those resources, even if it was being done internally, so that we do have that one-off investment for an ongoing return payback.
Sorry.
Sorry, Chair, that was my point there in terms of the fact that actually just attribute in terms of, what the office time may be, or to actually get a real true cost in terms of what the saving is, because it's great in terms of some of the savings there. But I suppose if we don't have the actual, true figure there, we can almost pat ourselves on the back, but actually we don't know in terms of what that's costed and what affected in terms of what stuff could have done otherwise. So the opportunity cost there by doing that, was that the right project to do? Because actually there might be another project we've done that could have saved others in terms of doing that. So I suppose, Councillor Chilvers, that's the point. Thank you, Mr. Alcott, as well for the answer.
Did you want to come in, Councillor Melrose?
I was, but just as a more general point of the change programme, because I think we've all looked at the numbers, but there are other benefits that have come through these projects that we do look at, better experience for the customer. Is it reducing, if let's say a process took 2 hours to do, is it now 20 minutes to do, and it's freeing up officers' capacity as well. So we do track them, I would say, non-financial benefits as well. So we do look at that. So I know Councillor Hales was saying about opportunity costs. We do look as well, okay, that's the financial benefit, but actually, is this going to help free up officer time so they can do, I won't call it admin jobs, but you can then reduce the time doing admin jobs and then focus on the more added value stuff and going out in the community, for example. So we do look at that as a whole picture.
Thank you, Councillor Melrose. Councillor Kohler, I'm cautious about coming to you, but...
Just very quickly, mention of the change board. As far as I'm aware, that's always held in private and no materials from it are shared with councillors. Would they be open to sharing minutes or other information from it to councillors? I think it would be very useful.
Yeah.
Which is great. Thank you.
Just to go back on with councillors, I think on the waste, for example, if we look at the wider benefits, like the on the CRM side of it, you can see we've got a whole number of online services now integrated end to end. So I think it's also improved that customer experience as well as trying to hit the bottom line. With the change programme board, it meets every other month, every couple of months, and we have a business case for every initiative that we consider. More than happy to share those, and we also write out to everybody who submits Moses as well, but are happy to pick up how we share that information moving forward as well, and any notes from those meetings as well.
Great, thank you. That was good, Bill. Councillor Davis.
Just to say, I think I said this at the last full council, we did offer to have an advisory board underneath that, so if people are really keen, put your names forward.
Thank you. So thank you for the paper. It's clearly some good progress being made here, which is good to see. And I think it is worth just highlighting actually the number of services that now are available via the CRM as well. I think that is a good bit of progress as well by officers. So thank you very much for everyone who's been involved in that. Right. So that was change programme. That was item 6. Item 7 is cabinet agenda call-ins. So, right, after the last ONS, a member did comment that they were disappointed that there hadn't been any cabinet items called in. I think for those of you who were at full council will have heard me remind not just members here, but all members across the council. There are 35 councillors who are able to call items into this committee. Now, I'm conscious actually Cabinet has got quite a lot of important things on its agenda on Thursday. I guess what I'd like to understand, we've had 2 call-ins, both of them from the Lib Dem group. That's not necessary to make an overtly party political point. So the way that we try and run this committee is, as far as possible, on a non-partisan basis. Everyone's got a viewpoint to bring. We all have, we're not going to agree on everything, but we're all going to have different, we're going to bring different perspectives. So I'm just interested to understand, I think maybe someone from the Green Group could start me off. What's the process that you go through to consider items about whether to call them in or not? Do you have a formal process to do that? Oh, Councillor Harrison, well done for taking, stepping forward while everyone else
I was going to prolong that silence
looking at
longer.
their shoes. Yeah.
Generally, yes, on the days leading up to the ONS, obviously we know it's on the Cabinet agenda. We generally have discussions, we have Green Group meetings on the days leading up to it, and that's where we consider any items that don't reflect what we've been thinking or what was the intention, anything that's particularly significant for one of the wards. But generally, we just discuss about, you know, we normally discuss that at the Green Group meeting, really, that we have, and then whether there's, you know, sufficient reason to call it in or not. But obviously, on this Cabinet, a lengthy agenda, but it was kind of felt as if there was no need to call any of those items in. But that's kind of the process we go through. Does anyone else would want to comment?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harrison, for taking the lead on that. That is appreciated. I don't know. I'm sort of hesitant to pick on Councillor Dray, probably, because Councillor Knight, I know you're very new. Is there a process that happens through the Labour group as well?
Well, we do the same thing. We just discuss things at our group meeting, but we can do things in between that. If we think there's anything that's important, relevant, that we'd like to discuss, that's what we do.
Okay, I'm not going to pick on other members, partly because I'm aware you're on your own, and that might seem slightly unfair. I do also appreciate for the Green Group and the Labour Group there is a slight challenge of having members in the Cabinet and members on the backbench, but I would encourage your group leaders to try and find a way to overcome that, so that actually you can play a really active role as members in scrutinising and bringing things forward as well. It is important that we get those different views around the table as well. So, Councillor Davison.
I'm certainly happy to do that. There's lots we do love talking about. But hearing your earlier discussion today about the other items that you want on ONS, they are truly mind-boggling, the amount you want to get through. So I think there is a bit of balance. So don't be too enthusiastic asking, Chair, or I think you'll be inundated.
And so I do take the point, Leader, and we have to make these manageable, these sessions. But actually, on some of the items we've got tonight, if we'd have had call-ins from 2 or 3 different groups, we'd have 2 or 3 different perspectives that we could explore and move into those.
Councillor Williams is here, and he is genuinely disappointed not to be talking about the cycle route through Abbey Fields. So if you do want to go away from agenda and start, I'm sure he will answer.
It is a fine project. That's all I can say. So okay, right. So look, I don't want to feel like I'm bashing everyone over the head, but it is just to make sure that everyone feels that we can all contribute to making sure we have good scrutiny in the council. So the first of the call-ins then is the annual Treasury Management Report. It was called in by Councillor Kohler on behalf of the Liberal Democrat group to due to the significant sums of money involved and the associated risk to the council. do I have an officer or portfolio holder to introduce this particular report? Mr. Leafley, are you? Thank you. Welcome back. Feels like ages since we've seen you, but great. Thank you.
This Treasury Management Report covers the Council's performance for the whole of 2024-25 as per legislation. The report requests the Cabinet recommend to the Council to approve the actual 2024-25 prudential and Treasury indicators in the report and note the annual Treasury Management Report for 2024-25, which can be found in Appendix A. The report outlines that the Council has complied with its legislation and regulatory requirements. The key actual prudential and Treasury indicators detailed in the impact of capital expenditure activities during the year are set out in Table 1 of the covering report, with detailed commentary within the report at Appendix A. Highlights in Table 2 are the net interest for the General Fund above forecast, due to robust returns driven by interest rates remaining higher than initial forecast during the year. The Council continues to fund borrowing through internal financing where possible to reduce the cost of borrowing due to interest rates remaining higher than forecast. With forecasts expected rates to continue dropping, shorter dated borrowing has been used where possible. The Council does not borrow in advance of need or for primary purpose for commercial benefit, and during the year, actual external debt did not increase and did not exceed the authorised limits or the operational boundaries. So I'll open to any questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Leafley. Councillor Kohler, shall I come to you as the person who called it in first, and then we'll see if others have got questions on this.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for the report. It is fascinating reading. I don't pretend to understand all of it, I must say, but the part that particularly leapt out at me was in Table 9, which is in 3.1 of Appendix A. So that's the borrowing outrun, Table 9. And it just lays out all the different agreements that we have for all the different loans that we currently have. So I've got a couple of questions about this. So I think, having been a councillor for a few years now, I'm quite used to seeing a big project. You know, we're going to buy 20 houses, for example. So we borrow some money, that goes down against the HRA. I presume that then you start tracking the money required to pay for them, and that an extra row would then appear on this table tracking that money. So against each of these loans, do you have records of what they relate to, where they originated from?
I will start by saying that I'm not the Treasury Manager. Unfortunately, Richard wasn't here today, but I will try my best to answer these questions. We only actually borrow on need. So if we have the funds available internally, we'll use those internal funds to buy the houses, to buy what we require. So in effect, the General Fund will loan to the HRA, then the HRA will pay the General Fund a loss of earnings that they would have normally received through investment. So line by line, for the majority of these, no, I couldn't. For the top half, they are all actually when we were forced to buy the stock, the housing stock. So all the March 2012, yes, I can tell you what they were built for. The rest of it is when we actually need it, we will then repay the General Fund where HRA will take borrowing from there. So roughly we can say each year what projects we've done and what they kind of relate to, but because we try to manage our funds better, which is cheaper to use our own funds rather than go out and borrow, it's not a one-to-one relationship.
I've got Councillor Chilvers, I think, wanting to come in on to it.
Yes, so for HRA borrowing, where we've got to now is that each year in the HRA business plan, we kind of have established a base position. So that's modelling all of these different lines. So there's basically it's showing all of the, the big buyback of the stock, plus then the existing new houses, S106, whatever we bought. They all get modelled in because you get this, it's costing you to start with, and then the rent gradually takes in, so and then covers the interest. And so we model that baseline position so that then anything new that comes to the HRA through Cabinet, so like we've got something coming on Thursday, then we can say, okay, well, that we've modelled that individual one, and then that will change the borrowing for that, and that's the impact that it will have. So we're trying to be really clear about, here's the baseline position. Every time we do something, this will be the impact on it. So we've got that transparency and clarity that we're looking. I'll stop there, but maybe we can add some.
Thank you. Councillor Kohler, that's you.
Thank you. I guess in my naive way of thinking, I kind of think, okay, there's a report coming that's going to say we're going to spend this, so whether it's HRA related or related to swimming pools or whatever, and that will usually say we're going to borrow this amount of money and we're going to, it's this term. So at the point that those projects get approved, it's fairly clear where the money's coming from and you know, what the expected return on that project is. It then seems that we don't ever see that again. At least I don't think I do as a councillor. It may be that portfolio holders get to see much more information. But for example, you know, so on here, I guess, for example, one of these rows will be about borrowing money to pay for Abbey Fields swimming pool, for example. But I wouldn't have a clue which row it was. It may well have been refinanced several times, so effectively appear across several rows, I guess. Am I kind of understanding it right? And is that that opacity seems to be there? There seems to be good reasons for it. It's just, I guess from my point of view, it's kind of a bit, kind of would like to join the dots a bit more easily.
Yeah, you're kind of right. Basically, we don't borrow unless we actually need to borrow. So we're not going to borrow money based on a plan that could delay or might not actually need. So if we have the money available, it's best practice for us, and financially makes much more sense to use our own money rather than go externally, especially now when the rates are so high. When we set out a project, we do set out what the borrowing costs are. So it's basically what we think will be the maximum cost for that and when the break-even point is. But again, we don't then go out and borrow for that once we start like putting a spade in the ground kind of thing. It is, if we have the funds there, we'll use our own funds and then borrow at the point where the council needs to borrow. So it's not always associated as project by project, it's more set into the group of the capital project.
Chilvers.
So I think I now understand what you're asking. Is basically in that column, it says PWLB loan number on the left-hand side, and you're saying, could we look up that PWLB number and explicitly link it to the original project, is basically what you're asking. Yeah. Okay, and I think, see, Mr. Linkley will correct me if I'm wrong, is by and large you can do that, but it can be more complicated. And it may be something we need to come back to you on.
It is always going to be rather complicated to do that because of when we borrow money, because we might borrow money related to a project that's already started or partway through or nearly finished, but because we had money available at the time, best practice and the code says that we should use our own money first before we actually then need to go back to it.
Yes, I certainly understand the complexity of it, and it would be great to have an answer as to, you know, maybe there are some occasions where it can be traced through more explicitly, and there are some others where effectively the money gets pooled, I think is what you're saying, and so therefore that, you know, it's lost, and that it's impossible to re-engineer that relationship. I've got there were two specific lines that I just want. Yeah.
Realistically, what we could say is that in the time frame of when we borrow, what capital programs we're working on at the moment, which would have gone into actually being paying that. So it might be one line actually covers multiple different projects rather than just one project. But that side of things, because of the timing of when we do it, we can say we've borrowed because we now need to pay for these projects.
I will get you. I will go back and ask the question and see what we can do.
Very interesting to see what reply you get. There were two specific rows that I just wanted to question on. So one was it's about 2/3 of the way down, 385193. It's a general fund. It was taken out 5th of August 2021, and its maturity date is the 4th of January 2026. I guess that was done at a very low rate, 1.03. It's 10 million quid. You know, that if we're having to refinance that in January, then I presume that we're not going to get a rate anywhere close to 1.3. It will be up in the 4 or 5s range. So are you projecting forward what the future costs are going to be in terms of what the additional increases in borrowing and the repayment costs are going to be?
Yeah, we have a full plan at the moment of when we actually loans, when they're due to mature, when we might need to refinance them. We're going through, and that's why at the moment we are borrowing between the short and the medium term because of the cost of borrowing. If we take long-term loans now and put ourselves into a 40-year loan at a very high rate, that's not very good for the council because you can't get out of these loans. So we're working within the short and medium term, but each loan that's done, it's looked at what is due dates for the loans, so we're not piling them all together and we're actually spreading them out over the mid-period.
Thank you very much. And I guess the other one that I just wanted to comment on was it's 3 up from the bottom, 789714, which is again a general fund one, which was taken out in January this year at 5.8. It's just over 2 million quid, and that's got a term up to 2065. So I was going to be very unfair and just ask you off the top of your head, why have we locked into such a long-term loan at such a relatively high rate?
I don't know, but I will find out for you and I will get back to you with the exact parameters of what that loan is.
Sorry, I knew that was an unfair question, but thank you for, it would be very interesting to see what that is.
Great, thank you. Right, we've got Councillor Barton and Councillor Hales.
Thank you, Councillor Kohler. On that point again, just expanding Councillor Kohler's, we seem to have borrowed the least amount of money, 2,193,000 for 40 years, and then double that, 4,000, 5,000, the same 2-3 months later, to be paid back in 4 years' time. So again, like Councillor Kohler says, why have we gone in at 5.8 for 40 years for 2 million and 4.5 for 4 million over 4 years? It just doesn't add up. It's just the same question, basically.
I'm sure there'll be a very valid reason for it. I just don't have that valid reason to hand, unfortunately. Richard's very good in what he's doing and how he's planning it out. That might have been for a specific reason because it's, as you see, most of our numbers are quite rounded. That's a very specific number. So let me get back to you if that's okay.
Yeah, it just sticks out like a sore thumb, that's all. And I thought that would be the loan we want to get rid of as soon as possible.
Sorry, Councillor Hales, then Councillor Droe.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Leathy, for stepping in for Mr. Wilson. I suppose my query linking to Councillor Kohler's question on the table is actually may what be helpful for members is to understand in terms of what the revenue is from those loans we're taking out. So actually to say if we're taking out a loan for £5 million for the first one, what level of investment we're getting back for that? You know, or you know, so if we take out £5,000, so if we take £100 to go and build a house, and the revenue return on that is going to be £200. Actually, from a council point of view, the turn in terms of what the figure there actually shows it in a profitable state in terms of doing that. So actually making the council money in terms of doing that. So I'm just wondering in terms of, I appreciate it's not you, but for Mr. Wilson, could there be something that's put in there? So actually, if it is for a new car park, if we're investing £500 in a new car park, what's the level of return we're expecting against that? Because that, I think, from a member point of view, may be helpful to understand in terms of why the level of detail in there is, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, I can go back and ask that question. I think the difficulty come around to it again is these lines don't specifically go to a car park or a sports centre or anything like that, so it's more general.
I totally agree. I suppose for members at the moment, looking at the figures there, is a question in terms of why we're borrowing that level of money at that time. So if we say is attributable to these projects here, and this is going to be the revenue as we've done with the change management programme, so we are borrowing, and whether it be about better service or whatever it is from there, that might be helpful from a member point of view to understand. Again, I appreciate this isn't your report, but it might be in terms of understanding in terms of if we've borrowed £1 million, but actually we've put that into IT and the benefit from that has saved us, £2 million, and actually from a service point of view, it might be helpful just to explain that through.
I think we can come back with something like that to associate roughly what these were, each loan was made to, and then we can actually look into that and get that answer for you. But I'll speak to Richard when he's back, who's our expert in this.
Sorry, Councillor Davison wants to come in on this point.
Yes, we're obviously money is extremely important, but these investments aren't just to make money. And in fact, we're not allowed to do them as purely commercial investments. So the swimming pools, we're doing this to make a lot of money. We're doing it to serve the people of the district. In terms of the housing, as Councillor Chilvers has already said, each time the projections are done there, so we know when there's a payback, but we also know when it stops costing us money. So when the rental income is greater than the interest rate and we're paying off. So we have those figures each time, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor Davidson. I appreciate that. But unless we're about to start giving swimming pools away for free and not charge people to enter them in terms of doing that, I appreciate not a commercial aspect, but actually it links into the commercial strategy in terms of the fact that actually there will be projects that we're doing for the residents which are valuable in terms of, you know, we're providing services for them. There will be also projects there that we look at HRA. There'll be houses that we'll be getting that will then generate a revenue and a fund to us, and that asset in theory should go up over a period of time unless there's something wrong. So I appreciate that, but I think just in terms of having that, I suppose, both sides of the coin, to say actually, you know, if it is we're purchasing 5 houses there and the cost is £50,000, but actually the market valuation now is there worth £100,000, we're not making a profit, but it's good investment. It's good sense, whether it be commercial sense, common sense, or council sense. They're all kind of the same thing, I would say.
Councillor Chilvers.
Yeah, just to reiterate, on the housing side, and Milverton, and some of these will be Milverton Homes loans, I think we have it's very clearly laid out when we expect to break even and to bring in a return. And so, you know, that's fundamentally, we are borrowing against an asset on that will bring that revenue return that can be reinvested into the HRA. I think the general fund ones are more complicated, but some of them will be probably Milverton Homes loans as well. So, yeah.
Great. Right, I'm going to come to Councillor Dray and then we'll move on to the next item.
I'm just wondering if it's all right. I've just noticed something that it's in item 6. I was just wondering if I could ask a question that's related to the HRA. Is that okay? It's just that I don't really know anything about this, and I was just wondering what it is that's going on here. It's just about the house, about two major assets in the HRA, Warwick Reed Street and Lillington Road. And it says that they're non-assets. And I was just wondering what it is and what kind of decision are you thinking of making about them when it comes to cabinet?
Is this on Treasury Management? Or, sorry. Councillor Melrose, you want to?
If it's the item I believe it is, it's confidential item, so we'd have to go in confidential session to discuss that item. If it's the one I believe.
Can you just check to see whether you think it is confidential? Because we are going to have to go into confidential session at some point.
Stephen, is it?
So this is the General Fund Asset Management Strategy you're on about. So there is, when it comes to assets, there's housing assets, which sits with myself, and then the General Fund assets, which sits with Councillor Williams. So that paper came to Cabinet and ONS, I believe it got scrutinised in July. I'm looking at Councillor Milton to tell me yes. He's trying to remember. So there are properties around the district that we own as a general fund asset, and we're looking at what we do with them properties. To ask specific properties probably isn't the best place in open forum.
Does that help? Councillor Dray? Great. Right, I think we're okay on that. So, right, thank you, Councillor Barton. Useful to have someone here who's got everything in paper. Yeah. Who'd have thought? Okay, so if we just wrap this particular item up, I think in terms of comments back to Cabinet, are members comfortable if we just simply thank officers for their work on the report? Councillor Kohler, you've got some thoughts?
Just one thought, which is that obviously sometimes, every now and again, it gets, or somebody makes an issue about the amount of debt that we're carrying as a council, and our standard response is, oh, well, that's secured against X, Y, and Z. I guess the only comment I would suggest that we make back to Cabinet is that this seems to be a missed opportunity, because here we have a table which details out £250 million worth of debt, which is a very eye-watering sum of money. And that, if you read the next table, it does talk about how some of that is secured and what's that's being used for. But it just feels like a missed opportunity to really make the case as to where the money is secured against more clearly. And that may not be the purpose of the Treasury Management Report. I totally get that, but still feels like a missed opportunity.
Great. So I think there's something here about thanking officers for their work on the report, but also reminding Cabinet that actually this report is an opportunity to explain how our lending is secured as well as borrowed. I think that's a good point. I think I would also, there is one bit of the report that we haven't talked about really, which is actually the overall performance, which looks like we are exceeding our peer groups across a number of different criteria. And I think we should also congratulate officers for their work on that. Congratulate officers on their work on exceeding our peer group performance on Treasury management. I think that is worth a shout out to officers. So if members are content with that, we will make those our comments for Thursday. And I'll try and make them more eloquently than I did then. Right, okay. Moving on to item 8. Now, item 8 is to actually exclude the public and press. Now, before we go into confidential session, I would like us, again, as a committee, if committee are comfortable, that we should feed back to Cabinet and ask them to actually reflect on how much of this report should actually be confidential, and to recognise the importance of transparency, and as far as confidential when it could actually be made public. I think we've got a potential example of that again here. The other thing I would ask committee services officers as well to do is, there's a number of pre-scrutiny questions, actually quite a lot that have been asked on this report. Those are currently all classed as confidential. I don't actually believe that some of the answers and the information in those is confidential. So I would ask committee services to work with officers and anyone else who's appropriate to review those and see what can be released into the public domain, because I think it is important for us to get that transparency up there. Are members comfortable with that as a comment back to Cabinet? And then I will. Do I need to read out the whole thing, or can I just say we're proposed to exclude public and press for the reasons set out on the agenda? I've got to do the official one. Okay, good. Right, find the agenda now. So. Would you like to make a comment, Councillor Williams, or we could wait till we're confidential if you like?
No, just in response to your query about why it's confidential, I'd just like to say that the Cabinet pushed that as well. So we had that exact discussion, wanting greater transparency, but have followed the advice which was provided to us.
No, I understand that, Councillor Williams, and thank you. And I think it's making the point as well publicly that, yes, we're pushing for that as well. I have requested that, but I'm following the advice of officers as well. So, but I think that is, again, worth us revisiting. Right, so we will now, I'm going to ask members to consider resolving that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, that the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items by reason of the likely disclosure of exempt information within the paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, following the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006. I will propose that from the chair. Do I have a second? Councillor Hales, all those in favour? Right, that's unanimous. Okay.